G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video, as the title says, well, sort of, what's more accurate? And I suppose it's actually a video to direct people to help with a question I hear asked, which is probably a little misguided or naive in a lot of fashions. In other fashions it's a real question, but probably delivered a little more, could be delivered a little better. What's more accurate? So in some cases people are talking about between one caliber to another caliber. In other cases I've certainly heard the question delivered as to, I want to buy a firearm and I want the most accurate one. And listen, like I said, in all cases it is at best a poorly structured question. So what am I trying to talk about? What's my point? Listen, I've got a little range of bullets in front of us, which can start to tell a story. I've also got a target rifle, tactical target rifle in front of me, which is customized, and I've got from my practical handgun, semi-automatic Sig Sauer P226, a very accurate handgun for what it does. A Model 1029, a Dirty Harry 44 Magnum, most powerful handgun in its time, and right down to my most used 22, heavy short barrel, little scoped 22, which I use for pest control and that side of things around here. One of my other really, I wouldn't say favourite, but I suppose it is a toy that I really love using, the 4570 with peep sights and a long range sight on it, bits and pieces that I've used in many videos and that sort of stuff, and something that is accurate. But I suppose what I'm really trying to put forward is that I have a range of firearms here that I would say in context they are all completely different, and yet if you want to talk about how accurate they are, they're all more accurate than me the shooter. So no doubt people have been to ranges and things like that, or have had these conversations in some form or other, will have heard that comment. A firearm is always more accurate than the person shooting it. What's that really mean? What are we talking about? Well, what we're talking about is the fact of how a firearm works, and we've been doing this in this world for hundreds of years. But it is talking about powder or substance that explodes when it's triggered. It explodes. It causes high-speed gases that push a bullet out of barrel. Piece of steel with in a rifle we're talking about. So all the ones that I've had here all have rifling. So that has rifling, which means it's engaged the bullet rotates or twists as it goes down the barrel. So it ends up firing out the end of the barrel with spin on it, which causes it to be stable to make it go straight to where it's going. The truth of that whole conversation is the last piece of the barrel, not the length of the barrel, the last piece of the barrel is the bit that actually causes where its direction is and how it releases around the actual crown, or right at the tip there, right on the muzzle, is the last contact with the bullet, and that's where the bullet fires off and goes amazingly straight to where it was last sent. Now what the end of the muzzle was doing at that time versus what it was doing when you were actually pulling the trigger, how the thing is moving is obviously monstrously different when I have this Model 29 and I'm firing that at target at that last moment, what that's actually doing, compared to what this target rifle sitting on its bipod with the bag under the back of it is doing, are quite different. And that's probably the biggest ingredient we're talking about. There's lots of other things we're talking about in the nature of how well something's constructed. So whether it's a heavy barrel and it's the type of rifling it's got in it, the way the crown's cut, the way the action seats, whether it's a plastic stock or it's a aluminium chassis, and there's lots of idiosyncrasies, I suppose, design features is what we're talking about, and really that comes into the ingredients of, like in most things, it's a combination of things that make something more accurate for you to use, not so much more accurate in its function, because as said, they're all going to release that bullet dead straight to where they were pointing, but what was happening prior to that is relevant. So listen, I'm getting a little complicated. I'll try and break that down in a different fashion. What it really means, what accuracy is really talking about, is how easy it is for you, the shooter, to use. So that's really the difference. The actual bullet, all the calibers are very, very similarly accurate to each other. Some are more efficient and better set up to do different things. So if you're trying to shoot 1,000 yards and you're trying to use a handgun, well, a couple of things. One is very hard to try and sight and hold still when you're holding something in a handgun. It's nowhere as easy to sight to start off with, let alone the fact that also the way that it moves and the way you're shooting it is very awkward. Plus, the little bullet that it's shooting, which is that one there, it is not very efficient at traveling. So it basically loses, it doesn't travel very fast to start off with. It loses speed very quickly. So once it's traveled more than even 100 yards, it is traveling a long way off target. Even though it started very straight and it's going very straight, it's traveled a long way off target. In comparison, the round that this one takes, which is a .338 Lapua, which is, what have we got, which is this bullet here, it's traveling very efficiently, very fast, not losing a lot of speed, so it's traveling a lot more efficiently out there. As said, to start off with, for the first little bit, the release of the bullet and traveling the first 20 yards, there's really not much difference in the accuracy. It's much more about the efficiency of the bullet, and the bigger one travels a lot more efficiently. So that means, okay, if we make them all 338 Lapuas, all great big bullets, they would all shoot really accurately and that's the best. And really, if that's good, then this big one next to it should be much more accurate too, shouldn't it? Well, no, there's another side to this. And that largely works with the smaller something is, the easier it is to shoot. The larger something is, and the more boof it's doing, the more shoving you around it's doing, the harder it is to shoot. Because you're just a human. We're not a robot. We can't just bulk ourselves up, and then there's a little balance of combination that comes into that. If in that same conversation larger pushes the human around more, if the rifle becomes an amazing amount larger, well, I suppose we'll come back to our same combination. If I go to, let's say, our Model 29, the Dirty Harry gun, and then I chamber it for the .338 Lapua, then put a good scope on it, shouldn't that be super accurate? Well, to start off with, it would probably damage you to try and shoot it because the amount of force that is being delivered by that sort of thing in the amount of recoil that's going on. But no, that wouldn't make it very accurate. If, of course, you took that .338 Lapua and put it in a gun that weighed the same amount as 3 humans, with everything that heavy, then yes, it would be very accurate. But of course, we're talking about a rifle. And once again, we're coming back to this combination side of things. So the simple side of things is combination is super relevant. The form and function, I suppose what we're talking about there is if you're going to shoot with a rifle at 50 yards in high speed moving and that sort of things, then there's modern versions of it, the likes of either this sort of thing in the 45-70, which is a bit big, so it's breaking the rules, but this style rifle, or to be truthful, in the way of probably the most accurate thing to use in this score is this little boring fellow here, which is a 22 bolt action rifle, which is nice and light, nice and short, easy to balance, easy to shoulder up to, does everything very easily, and shoots this little tiny 22, which is all it shoots, but very simple to shoot. There's still lots of fundamentals you need to get right, but probably if you're talking 50 yards and offhand and to go and shoot rabbits and that sort of stuff, then it would be the absolute most accurate thing to do with that because of how easy it is to shoot. And I suppose that goes into another little story and an interesting little segue that I've certainly heard, and I suppose what I'm harping on about the accuracy side of things is I've certainly heard people go on about, well, what's more accurate or what's the guaranteed accurate or all that sort of stuff. guaranteed accuracy, I should say, or all that sort of stuff. I have some fairly, like I said, when you actually understand what we're talking about, the features of the gun are very relevant. One isn't going to be more accurate than the other in its basic form, but how it's bolted together, the quality of bits and pieces it bolt together with is going to make it easier to shoot. A story that I have to offer is a guy, it's passed on third hand or fourth hand to me, but someone that actually came into the shop. We'd bought a gun. It had this gun was a very nice expensive gun. I can't remember even the brand. I think it was in the Seiko Tico range, but I can't remember for sure. But it had a guarantee of sub MOA, so that meant that it was going to shoot better than 1 inch at 100 yards. And he came back in and said, listen, no, I want money back. This is what I can't make it. I'm only shooting 50 yards and I can't get better than a 6-inch group out of it. So the dude said, okay, well, that's interesting. Maybe there's something broken. Maybe there's something damaged on the crown or something like that. But let's just do the basics. So what are you shooting? Are you shooting a bipod or a bag or what do you set up on the bench? How are you actually shooting this? You're in a cradle. How are you actually shooting? How are you grouping it? He said, no, I'm not using that. I'm shooting off my hands. He said, okay, so you're down on the bench, and using your hands to shoot this sort of stuff. Instantly, he's obviously got a little bit of a clue. He said, no, I'm standing. I shoot offhand. I never shoot off bench. I shoot offhand. So, okay, for those people who understand this equation, you're already laughing a little bit. For those who don't, a rifle isn't the thing that makes the bullet go straight. The rifle is the tool, and unless you use the tool properly, it can't be accurate. That doesn't work that way. The bullets aren't going to go better. There is, to be truthful, if I tried to shoot this at 50 yards, I'm going to be no more accurate than shooting this at 50 yards. That's probably a little bit of a lie, probably at 20 yards we were talking about. But what I'm actually saying is that that's probably an exaggeration of what we're talking about here, but to actually offhand shoot, you are the accuracy issue here. How still you can hold things, how well you can make that rifle shoot when you're actually holding it up is the problem here. If you come down to, once again, one of the handguns and you have it set up in a cradle on a bench where everything works really well, then you can start to find the real accuracy of it. If you're very practiced at it, and if you've been to matches and watched people shooting what look like little wad cutter bullets, I don't have in here, but they're a terrible looking bullet. They look incredibly inefficient. But you watch really good people use those and you'll see ridiculously small groups in paper with people shooting from their hands. These are very practiced people that know exactly what they're doing and generally have loaded their firearms and things to make sure that recoil works properly. It's another side of things that comes back to in the target rifle side of things, people looking at larger rifles and more efficient, because on paper, the bigger the bullet, the longer the bullet, the more weight it is, the better BC it is, with more powder running faster, and so the bullet's going fast, it's going to get to target faster. All those are good things, aren't they? Well, they're only good things if the platform and you can operate well together. By and large, you'll find that this little fella here, which is a 223, is a rifle in a decent quality rifle you'll tend to find is the most accurate round. Now, it's not that it's a more accurate round at all. It's just that rifle has such little recoil urge, and there's less harmonics going through the rifle. The things are really easy to shoot. And that's what makes those rifles tend to be so accurate, is because they work well with shooters. Shooters find them very easy to shoot. And I probably get more questions about what's wrong with my rifle and how can I work out what's going on here, what's wrong with my load, what's the special load, all that sort of stuff, when people go from something like a 223 to 300 Win Mag or a 300 PRC or a 338 Lapua, or they take four steps up, and the system is just as accurate, but they can't make them shoot accurately. They all of a sudden are shooting an 1.5 inch or a 2-inch group at 100 yards and they can't figure it out. It's not because that rifle is inaccurate. It's not because that round is inaccurate. It's because The platform, now that may be that the rifle does need work. Maybe the stock's not very good. Maybe the chassis is not very good. Maybe it just needs setting up with the butt pad moving or a better muzzle brake or all those bits and pieces. But largely, it's a lot harder to shoot. And the fundamental bit of that, which I've said a lot of times and I'll say again, is that the bullet doesn't, when it goes bang, the rifle starts moving before the bullet leaves the muzzle. Might only be invisible in a thou of movement, which is not going to be perceivable, but a thou of movement on the last bit as the bullet releases is exactly the type of thing that starts the group going everywhere. And the more stable the rifle is, the more neatly it functions, the more accurate it'll be. And as you can imagine, in something that's small, it becomes a lot easier to shoot. You don't have to do as much right to get it to operate right, and then it becomes more accurate. Doesn't make the round more accurate, but I suppose enough harping there. The simple answer which I'm trying to say, which I'm trying to put forward, is it's about combination, and asking what's more accurate, what's the more accurate one, is to me not the right way to ask that question. It is what's more suited to doing this sort of shooting. What's better for me? I'm a novice and I want to do this. What's a better one for me to start with? What's a more efficient round? What is going to hold a better group in windy conditions at 1,000 yard? Yes, those are questions which I get with. And then there are some real answers to go with that sort of stuff. And then there's always going to be what the real shooter experience is, how experienced you are, how good are you doing this sort of stuff. There is simple bits which might sound like biased of some form or other, but a large fit person is more likely to be able to function well behind a larger rifle, larger caliber, because they have potentially more control. Doesn't always work out that way, but you put a little lightweight, you put a small person, like a small female, behind a large caliber, you're probably making a mistake. It's probably a silly thing to do. And there's other things to go on as to how the person reacts to that sort of stuff and their real feelings about it and that sort of stuff. People get scared and flinches are developed by pushing big calibers onto small people. But equally, there's some little guys, little girls that do a wonderful job with the monsters as well. So there's no hard and fast, but experience, personality, combination, setup are all super, super relevant. But there isn't actually a caliber that is more accurate than another caliber. So last bit I want to touch on there, I just thought of that as I said it, and the last thing I heard recently someone talking about the 338 Norma versus the 338 Lepure, and the 338 Norma was a lot more accurate. That's a really, not a great thing to say. And what I'm talking about there is that same deal. It may be more efficient, it may be more consistent. The bullet is actually the bit that is consistent, so maybe you're getting a better burn rate in your case, so you get more speed versus the same amount of powder. Okay, that can make it a little more consistent. You may find that the cases last better, the brass lasts better, that sort of stuff, because it's a better design. Okay, that makes it more consistent. More accurate? Stop it. Not even vaguely. It is not a relevant thing. If you load them properly to where you get consistent load pressures and you load properly, then the bullet and the barrel is where the combination is all we're talking about then, the efficiency side of things. So once you've got X speed, the case doesn't change anything. Maybe easier to work out load data on. All that sort of stuff I can agree with. Saying one round is more accurate than another round is fundamentally a incorrect thing to say. So that's it. That's a little direct one on that sort of score there. I do hear it in all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of ways to it. It's a little bit how I think on both sides of things. There's people who really do think it's like asking horsepower to them. It's like, what's more powerful? What's the bigger car? What's one's got more power? Well, that you could ask, or more power, but more accurate? No, it's much more about a lot more details than that. Anyway, enough of my babble. Hope that was some help, some people. Thanks for checking in on us, and we'll catch you next time.